Computer. Right. Hey everyone, welcome to the 10th Moving Forward RBE meeting. So Sammy gonna be our presenter today, and his topic gonna be environmental assessment. So gonna be slightly different today. Today during the presentation, everyone can interrupt the presenter and ask a question. So it will be more interacting. If that makes sense. So, Sammy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, Charlotte, by the way. So today I will present, actually it was planned for 50 minutes, but as Jeff will not be here, maybe we can make it longer somehow. We will see how it will go. So today I will present a very simple concept. Actually, but the application is, it has lots of potential. And although it is simple, this is the best method, one of the best methods to the scientific community for environmental assessment. One is, which is, exposures to workers or to the environment in fresh water, or different ecosystems, or the chemical exposure of different ecosystems. The risk assessment is about this, and this one is more broad concept, which takes into account the whole production chain. So let's start with the why we need this. We all know why we need this, but so main environmental issues. So what's the problem? We say, is it us, the civilized apes, because we consider ourselves all-knowing, we can control anything, we can do whatever we just imagine and just put out there and just expect it to be, work, expect it to work. We were so short-sighted, but we are not aware of it. That's the bad thing about us, I think. So in some sense, yes, what we can do about it? So we can be more informed. For example, when you go to the market, you don't know your environmental impact, or some company is working and producing something. When you go to work, you submit yourself for money. Do you know your environmental impact when you work? You don't. You just go for money, right? So this is what we can do about it. We have a tool called life cycle assessment. And okay, I missed one slide. So with our current consumption rates, as we can see, the world is 1.6 worlds to sustain us. So we are the world, we are, especially Australia, USA, Switzerland, India, which is mostly in poverty line. It will be sustainable, but it will not be acceptable for the most people, right? So we need to find technologies that is at the level of living like Europe or USA or these developed countries, but will have an impact that an average Indian has. So, in what ways are we impacting the environment? We can emit some chemicals that any chemical, and because it is a poison. If you take poison, if you take any chemical in your body, it can act as poison if it has the right dose. For example, if you eat, if you even they say if you drink too much water, it can kill you. So any chemical can have the impact. But so emission of various chemicals, deforestation, use of water in areas where water is scarce. If you use it, then there can be problems with water scarcity. So as we know in science, we must quantify things. So how to quantify? Okay. The, the framework in which it is accepted in, I think, 1999, 1998, something like this, by European Union as a frame issues. So, what does this mean? Why we are doing what we do? For example, you know, it says transport, because we need to, humans, we need somewhere to some other place. That's the justification, and that's a driver why we. And pressures is while we are doing this thing, for example, going from somewhere to other place, we are doing some emissions, we are polluting the environment. So drivers is why we do it. Pressures is what we are emitting to the environment while doing, or what we are taking during this activity. And the state is after we do this. For example, I go from A to B, right? I emit CO2, I emit and then the environment. For example, I drive my car, I emit CO2, and the state is now there is CO2 in the atmosphere. So that's the state of the environment, which is higher CO2 levels. And what is the impact, right? The impact is the state, higher CO2, higher temperature. So the environment is goes to another state, right? And usually this state is not good for the people, because the nature is in balance. In it has evolved to be in balance. So this is a disruption, distraction in the environment. If I just drive my car, so usually impacts are negative. There is very few impacts are negative. So the impact can be like the climate change, the rise of sea levels, and you know, to people in the living near the sea should migrate to other places. But usually our assessments here, life cycle assessment, do not take, I mean, it is an improvement. We are trying to incorporate these issues because it is too wide, those issues, that the methods must be developed over years. So nowadays, I will mention it later, near to the end, which kind of impacts are taken into account. But impacts can be on human health mainly, and we look at biodiversity loss with life cycle assessment usually. We don't look specific animals, or, we just say, for example, in a forest, meter squared or per kilometer squared, this much species is living. If the temperature goes up 1 degree, right, for example, that this much species as a percentage will be lost. We can look at that, and this will be the impact. Okay. Charlotte, do you want to talk?
Actually, I do. We lost your screen. Did you stop sharing it with us?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't see it anymore.
Okay, let me.
Could you try to share it again? You click the share screen, the green button.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
There's a time limit? No?
No.
Share screen.
No, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going really slowly. Like it is like 15 minutes now, right? A minute.
Good.
Maybe I should go.
I have a question.
Yes.
You showed us the chart of all the countries that are consumed, and you said that India is at about the level that we all need to be. Why does
Yes,
India have such a low impact on the environment?
Well, we know that India is the most polluted country.
Yeah.
Oh.
It has polluted cities. So it is weird to know that. But here is the thing. The policies, these are given per capita, I mean per person, right? So, because there are too much density in cities, that the pollution is there it's a consumption. These doesn't take into these indicators takes into account that agriculture, how much they eat, what kind of food they eat, how much, what they burn. So it doesn't take into account pollution, first of all. It doesn't take, if they, they have little garbage, but they throw in the river, right? So this doesn't take into, so it doesn't show that the Indians are living, they are living unsustainable. But this just shows if they have landfill and consumed like European, so they are consuming much.
Yeah.
They
Electronic
less car, so they are living like more. They are not consuming like we do here. This is a but so I can't suggest that let's live like Indians, like they let's, but we should do something about it. They don't have cars, as you said. They don't have trans. They live like as we lived 300 years ago. Ancestral pollution.
We still don't see your
But
screen, by the way. All I see is black.
really, okay.
Yeah, there it is.
Everyone
Yeah,
can see it.
I can see your screen. Who else can see the screen?
now we can. I can see it now.
I can see it.
Stephanie, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So this is about consumption rate. I mean, what kind of food do you eat? Do you have a car? How much do you travel? How far do you travel? Do you go to holiday? And so, this generally consumption rates. How much do you buy? And Indians just buy rice or something and eat it and survive. But when they buy and they have package, they throw in the river, and the chemical companies, for example, the big business came, makes industries there. That's the main reason, not the main, but another aspect of it, that those, because they have cheap, right? So they don't have much environmental regulations. So just it's very cheap. They don't need to pay anything. Just for those birds, give them something and bring to the developed countries, and the pollution is there, but right. So this is the second factor why this is so polluted, the cities. So we are way over the consumption rate. We should, if the market, about even inequality, because whole the world, I mean, if only in Europe was living in luxury and consuming and the world was okay, still not acceptable, but at least we could say that this is sustainable, as not in the future, but anyway. So how, as I said, this is, and there is responses, and we expect responses usually from government, right? I mean, we all know that people respond, but these studies, I mean, people don't see it. I mean, when I do life cycle assessment, I should go to the public and say, okay, this is it, but people even don't know what I'm talking about. And responses is, if we know the impact, okay, what we will do, right? We can transport, I can drive less, ride bus, I can take public transport. This is response. This is not happening to the extent as we want. Or pressures, for example, CO2, right? We know that the CO2 is going up, and it is not doing, the government or the people, the public is going for, they are not doing the response. Response phase here has very, it's lacking the response. So what is life cycle assessment?
Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
I heard on the news this cycle that you just showed us that was adapted by the year 9 or 1998. And, and on the news this week that a lot of apparatus into space to monitor, know if there's any relationship between these two?
Well, the satellites, I mean, the NASA is having all kinds of measurements that is possible with the current scientific knowledge that is from, the farmers even can now, in the field agriculture, if you have the money to pay for the satellite to send it, the moisture of the soil, and they can tell you this, you must water this area, and the other is okay, because they can see how much moisture the soil has. They can see, they can do chemical tests with where there are lots of methods, spectroscopy it's called, right? So with light, they can look different wavelengths of light with and they can see how much water is there, how much CO2 is there. So they can see from satellite the chemical composition of atmosphere.
So basically the technology that resource-based economy would need to assess what's needed, it's already in place, basically.
Yes, there is two, as far as I can see, there are two ways that this first, the companies can measure their emissions before checking from the satellite how much is in releasing. The companies can measure the emissions from from government professionals with their they can measure these technologies there already. They are measuring, but they are not measuring it everywhere. They can't go everywhere and measure it. But some things are there are things that are very dilute for the satellite to measure, but still have an impact. So the satellite can measure like amounts, or like we release gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere. The satellite can detect it, or the water is really there. I mean, tons of water. The satellite can, but there are chemicals that very few concentration, I mean 1 in a billion or something, that can kill all water life, just all life in all aquatic life, for example. So chemicals have to be measured at source, because before releasing. This is because right now, as far as I know, I don't know if the government is hiding something, but I don't think so. With this technology, these chemicals can't be detected from outer space. Only the major emissions, like CO2, water, or something like that. And we can't detect it below the ground, because like the light gets distorted. So that's it. And what is life cycle assessment? A method for the evaluation of major and service activities related to a function. That is very important, that it is related to a function. Because what does it mean, a function? For example, it doesn't, this life cycle assessment doesn't evaluate just, for example, it can say, what is the impact of a bus, right? But how to compare them. So it has a tool to compare different products or services which serves the same function. For example, transport. So we can compare train with car, with bus, with bicycle, with walking. See, so it is focused on a function. That is, I think this is important. There is a message that I must. Okay. Yeah. Characteristics is, it has a very wide scope for the production process. has a wide covering the environmental impacts, so it doesn't look just only climate change, but it covers many areas, as I said, major environmental impacts. For example, there was the ozone layer was disappearing from CFCs, the chlorofluorocarbons. Now it is recovering. It has recovered, but this so this life cycle assessment takes account those major issues that we know of that can be dangerous for us: climate change, ozone depletion, other things that killing animals, biodiversity loss, such important issues. It just integrates all of it, and it takes into account functional unit, as I said, this function performed by goods and services, which is, I think, very important. So this is the three main characteristics of life cycle assessment. Hence, this is the only method we have to avoid the shifting of burden. What does it mean? For example, if I just only look in the production chain, how much CO2 I release, and I choose the lower CO2, make FCs that depletes ozone, right? So this prevents this because I am checking all of the major impacts, right? Okay. My screen, I can't. Okay. Now I can. Can you see it? Okay. So production chain, research and processing from nature, design, then manufacturing. My cat is shouting. Factoring and retail. So we need to manufacture it, and distribution. We need to distribute it and use, recycle, energy recovery, and at the end, disposal. And each stage we must sum environmental impacts over all those stages. Emissions, for example, resource extraction has CO2 emissions. Design, not that much, but manufacturing, CO2 emissions, distribute CO2 emissions. So we must sum all over the life cycle assessment. Then we just sum it all over the production. And at the end, we have a product, we use it, then we dispose it or recycle it. Right? So that's it. And so we just look. So these dark blue ones is the life cycle: raw material extraction, material processing, manufacturing, use, and throwing out. What is wrong with these cats? I don't know what's wrong with them. They want to go out. I will not let them. I'm living at the 6th floor, and they go to the neighbor. So I will not let them. Bear with me. Just they. So each life cycle stage, we call them, has inputs from environment. That's why we're affecting the environment, and outputs to the environment. So we have, and the important thing is outputs can be translated into impacts and inputs as well in some cases, but mainly inputs. For example, CO2 is climate change, or okay. So this is life cycle assessment frame, which is goal and scope mission is tells us calculate environmental impacts and for what. The inventory analysis, we must know which chemical is emitted to the environment along the life cycle for the production of a given product. For example, I want to produce a bicycle. To produce a bicycle, how much chemicals in extraction of the metals and all those components and working, manufacturing, how much CO2 and how much other chemicals are emitted. So this is known. There are databases that gives us those information. And impact assessment, which we assess how much impact it will make if we emit those substances, those chemicals. And this is an interpretation. It can be used for, usually it is used for marketing and advertisement. If you go to a market, there are eco labels. And it says, CO2 emissions are reduced, right? But it doesn't say about ozone layer or something. So those eco labels are not enough to tell you something about the environmental impact. So I am against such localized things.
How would you like to? I mean, you say that this is being used now for marketing purposes. So basically, the capitalists are using it to make their products look more attractive. But can you think of for a better purpose?
Of course. I mean, I think this is the. I know risk assessment and I know life cycle assessment that can be used for the improvement of what we call technosphere, technological processes for the production of a product or service, right? So this is what we all have actually. I don't know anything else that we know that we can assess it. Well, this you can call the movement proposed something, and I followed the calculation of the calculation of how to manage the technosphere. I forgot the name, but I follow it, and it doesn't explain in detail, but there are some things there. But I think life cycle assessment can be incorporated in that methodology. So this is a useful tool that I know, the only tool that I know that can be used for RBE.
So like when Jacques says that everything will be manufactured to be the most holistically sustainable sort of system, you think that this model would be a good way to do that?
Yes, because holistic, what does it mean? I mean, you are producing some stuff and you emit chemicals, and how can you make sense of the, I mean, how can you, what you can sum over is chemicals. I mean, when there are the building blocks of, I mean, what you can find in common to sum is chemicals. So you have to make some assessment like this for the environmental assessment, because otherwise you don't have any. This is the basic. You go to the chemical level, otherwise I don't know any other way of assessing the environmental impacts, because what we are concerned mostly is toxicity and you know, for climate change, this that is it is preventing the radiation to go out, so it is heating up the atmosphere. So it is all at the level of chemicals, toxicity, all those climate changing. So that's why it is used. We must go to the level of chemicals to assess environment. So that's, for example, in this the zeitgeist movement thing, this thing, I didn't make it, wasn't detailed, so I couldn't understand. But there wasn't a part about chemicals. So it was saying the impact. So this can be extended with this. I mean, this presentation was nice, very nice aspects, but this is, I think, a necessary part to be incorporated, because I don't know any other way to assess environmental impact. I mean, this must be in there. And so goal and okay, someone wrote a message.
Sorry, may I quickly intervene here for a moment regarding this approach? May I?
Yes, sure.
I think this approach is an approach to make decisions to either we produce some good in a way or in another way, and we actually can attribute a cost of production, giving the pollution we have to make good, giving the depletion of the materials, involved, the depletion that can be finite, like oil, for instance. We can't use much oil to produce some good, because it will be shortage. Quickly, this approach is the best approach that I know. It's also used to decide the method, the approach to production of some good.
Yes, but here's the thing. This approach in my opinion, developed under the capitalist and under monetary system. So you must recognize this, right? This resource, the consuming resource, and assess this impact. So we will see afterwards. It will be clear. We are assessing it in monetary terms. We are, how dollar it will cost, metals and fossil fuel and other resources. So this is still has to be it has to be apart. I mean, it has developed apart from the current economic system, which is not logical at all. We value substance. How we value, right? It's monetary value. Still, there is money there.
When I'm referring to cost, I'm not referring to money. I'm referring to cost environmentally and other terms, holistic terms.
The impact, the value you are saying, it's how we. Okay, so you are saying how can we put in how can we quantify the impacts at the end? You are asking that.
I'm actually
Yeah.
telling that's a way to quantify the impacts holistically.
Yeah, there many is the for humans, and it is what I was going to mention it later. But as you asked, much years is lost from human life as an impact, and it is very uncertain. It because for example, climate change, 1 degree, heating up 1 degree. So how can you know how many people will get sick because of this, or how many people will die because of this, right? And how many years will be lost from their lives because of sickness or before dying, because women are expected to live 8 years, Europe at least, right? And 67 years or something like this. Sorry, 77. No, no, not 67. I want to live more. So there are methods, statistical methods, that we obtain from different. So they know which, if some chemical is released and you're exposed to it, they know what sickness you can have. You can have cancer, right? You can have other diseases. So these emissions eventually will be linked to human health. And the whole goal actually in this method is to connect emissions to human health and environmental health. And in the human health aspect, we assess how many years is expected to being lost because caused by those emissions, right? In toxicity, it is much easier than climate change. For toxicity, you say, for example, there are statistics from, and those chemicals are causing this, and so um, for some chemicals it is established. And um, well, I was going to mention later. So these chemicals, for example, carcinogenity, right? Many chemicals are released, and some chemicals are carcinogenic in different levels, right? And if we find a reference chemical that we know, for example, if you take 1 gram, it will cause cancer. And below 1 gram, it doesn't cause cancer, right? So there's a reference chemical, and we normalize the effects of other chemicals according to this chemical that is causing cancer by or ingestion. There are separate routes that you can take this chemical, so it takes into account many routes for one chemical, and it's very, very complex thing with chemicals. It's lots of science. Science is poured into this to develop this methodology with different chemicals taken into account. Um, but still, there's lots of missing chemicals. Some chemicals we can't assess right now. So the question is, the answer is what you're saying. How we assess this is the days, the years lost. When I release the humanity will lose 10,000 years of human life, right? So this is the main thing, and there are other. So at the end, it will become more clear, right? So the goal is, for example, it is easier to understand with examples. So, for example, alternatives. Which one we should? Detail. Yes. Best guess. Yes, it's always an improvement. Jack said that his cities are improving, so this is science. So it's always this new statistics come, and for example, they were saying for CO the methane, they were saying it is the CO2 echo is 222, and now they are changing every year how much is equivalent, because new statistics and new science is coming. So it's always changing, but the basics are there, right? The soap, solid soap, and liquid soap. So, for example, we have two alternatives, and no environmental impact. Which one we should choose, right? Because if we look only the monetary terms, when you go to the market, this is $5, but this is $6, whatever. It is not meaningful because it doesn't say anything about impact. So we should know the environment. So the scope is cradle to grave, let's say excluding infrastructure, the buildings factor or something, right? So the cradle to grave means from extraction of these raw materials to make the soap to where you dispose it, right? So functional unit, this is important, as we focus on the function, is to clean a pair of hands for one time. So both soaps will perform this function. And then we find reference flows, which is 5 milliliters of liquid soap can clean one time my hands. And then 3 grams of solid soap, it can clean my hands one time. So we will look at the production of 5 milliliter of liquid soap and 3 grams of solid soap. So we will compare those based on function. What I mean with function is this. Okay. So inventory analysis. So there are, as I said, that gives you this information. For example, what I want to know how much, what processes is needed to produce 5 milliliter of liquid soap. So I check it, right, in the database, and it says to produce this soap, there must be package produced, there must be cardbox for the package, and there must be palm tree farming. You can see here, right, fruit. So there are coming together to produce the soap. So we must know all those processes and from the emissions from those processes, right? And RBE is this emissions. We know emissions and inputs. Why not use human time as a resource to manage? For example, in here, palm tree farming, right? It is using for 5 mil to produce 5 milliliters of soap. There is 30 minutes of human time spent in it, right? So why not use it as an input? This is a good thing. Instead of money, instead of monetary, arbitrary, that I value this soap that much, why not use real human time? Because you have 24 hours a day, and we sleep 8 hours. So we have resource. Let's use those resources, see all people equal, see all people's time equally valuable, which is means equality, right? This is the basics of equality, and then manage those resources. So, and yeah, so LCA takes into account recycling issues. If we recycle, we can take into account this recycling as well. So it covers even recycling. Connect. Okay, so we must now connect those emissions to the impacts. So how we do that? Okay, so the impacts can be calculated in various levels along the impact chain, right? So how we do that? What I mean with there are midpoint and endpoints. What I mean with this is the basic. This can answer many questions of you if you have that. It says LCI, the life cycle inventory, which is emission of chemicals, CO2, volatile or organics, or phosphate, SO2, right? NOx, CFCs, ozone depletion. So we have chemicals that we know to produce 5 milliliters of soap. We are releasing those chemicals, or we are cutting a forest area, right? This includes land use, and land use is, for example, this much meter squared, because it was using palm oil, right? The soap. So we know how much it is deforestation in meter squared. So we have all the life cycle inventories. What we are doing, actually, life cycle inventory means what we are doing to the nature. We are emitting some chemicals, we are cutting trees, this much area, like, so that's on the first column. That is the state of the environment. For example, ozone depletion. If you release CFCs, there will be ozone depletion. Or the arrows don't go to the places that they should go. It is wrong there. I don't know why, but I just took from the original. But for example, human toxicity, you have, you know, for radiation, you can have radioactive elements, and climate change, you can have CO2 and methane chemicals. And when you know the state of the environment, which is, the climate change, it's getting warmer. So which products used?
Excuse me, but I mean, like this impact chain you have here, has it been done to some products that really been over the whole process, how much the process is releasing different chemicals, and how they're affecting the whatever the chemicals are impacting? Have it been done by or governments to say specific products?
Yes, this alternatives assessment is called. It is not very widespread. So there is, as I said, there is a database that includes all those. For example, they know how chemical is released for lots of processes, like, from the production of, for example, liquid nitrogen to production of, let's say, some aluminium to production of biomass, for example, of, let's say, fuel production of diesel fuel. They know how much during those production chain, they know how much is emissions released to the environment. So this information already exists. They know how much is emitted, but is it done this assessment for the products? No, because why they should do it? I mean, if they just only look monetary terms, they think only in monetary terms about these assessments. If they can advertise, they do those, but otherwise they just go for the cheapest one. These assessments are not in their focus, right? This is just for environment. Who cares about environment, right? So I was searching for alternatives. If they did such assessments apart from advertisement, right? But I couldn't find much for. So they do this only for like big decisions. For example, government will decide on something, or they did it for. There was a study about cars and electric cars and petroleum cars, right? Fuel that use fuel. So those big issues are done, and usually they're funded by whatever business they want to advertise. Otherwise, no one goes to do those things, because if you want to sell a product, why bother? You just do the cheap. If you can't make it cheap, you can do this advertisement as an advertisement, and you just say, okay, this our product, and you just focus on one area, for example, climate change, and you just choose whatever you like, and just say, okay, the climate change is less in my product, but others maybe more. So it's not. It is very well established, but not used very much. I hope. Is it okay that I answered it?
Yeah, it's a great answer.
So in the literature there are many comparisons with life cycle assessment, but you can find in scientific articles. It is not transmitted to the public. You see, if you go to the scientific articles and search about it, you will find many products, but you should never hear about it. So, and then is Delhi, it says, at the right side, from the right, as human health, which is adjusted life years, which is human health. How much year losing from emitting those substances? That's one. And the second one is ecosystems, which is species times year. So during 1 year, how many species we are losing by emitting those chemicals or cutting forests, right? So that's the third thing. And resources, which is surplus cost, which is about money. How much, how much does it cost to extract, for example, fuel? That I am consuming this fuel, how much does it cost? I am consuming aluminium, how much does it cost? So this is the monetary terms. So there's for human and resources. There are three impact categories, main at the end. And I think I'm going good with the time, isn't it? 1 hour or something. I'm not checking, but yeah. So chemicals emitted are categorized for their impacts, for example, climate change, and reference substances, as I said. For example, for climate change, it is CO2. So methane is, now they are saying 36 times stronger than CO2 over 100 years period, because always scientific knowledge is changing and they are updating those values. They were saying 22, now they're saying between 28 and 36, right? And there are some downsides to this life cycle assessment, that it is such a powerful tool. We can just see how much chemicals emitted, and then we can connect to how much people are losing their life years, or how much biodiversity, how much species we are losing, right? So this can be connected somehow. It's getting better every day. Science progresses, but there are some still improvements need to be done. What kind of improvements? Many impact categories are missing. I mean, that I showed before here, lots of impact categories. I think 18 or so, 16 something. I mean, lots of impact categories, right? But some things is so complex. For example, invasive species. How can you manage that if your activity, your service, or your product includes, the invasive? For example, you're a pet shop. How can you, invasive species, how can you take this into account, the effect of it? Or plastic pollution, the simplest thing. The plastic pollution is not assessed with this methodology, because it is assumed that it will go to the landfill and it will manage. But in India, it is just in the rivers, everywhere. So quality data is hard to obtain also, and data can be missing on toxicity. For example, some chemicals, many chemicals, it is not known. Does it cause cancer? It is not known. How can you know? You can take a rodent, mice or something, you can make experiments, but there are thousands of chemical compounds. How the issues, this animal issue that why I should harm this animal, why I should spend money on these experiments. So this toxicity of those many animals, many are not known. We know now about, it includes 3,200 or something like this chemicals in this method, main chemicals that we know that they are causing trouble. So they include those. But the other chemicals, we don't know, right? And many endpoint categories are not well established. So the connection between this, for the second column, that we know
Oh dear, it sounds like Semi's computer is stuck. His picture isn't moving. I did want to mention something that I put on the chat, and it's about this different the reliability of the impact. And he wrote, the impact assessment factors are detailed and collected in an open database that is progressively enhanced through experience. So all of the categories that Semi has been talking about that make it less, that's all very true. But David mentions that because of science, because of the update, which Semi also mentioned, they're getting progressively better. And it can only realistically be best guess for each assessment, but each one gets more definite as new assessments are made.
Yes. So,
hey, you got stuck there for a while.
sorry. Yeah, probably my internet. I'm using wireless and it just cuts sometimes. Yes, so it is like as I said, it is as we more find out about the toxicity of chemicals, about the impacts, about the ecology, how it works, what it it is science. So we just include those new knowledge and improve the numbers in the assessment. But still, there is lots of things missing are there. The main thing, for example, CO2, methane, CFCs, we know major environmental issues are there already. I mean, if you just took the CO2, it is something. It says climate. Just took CO2 and methane. It tells you something about climate change. So the main chemicals are there already. 3,000 chemicals. But proved more and more. So,
have you got any more slides? Because we don't
yes.
see your screen now.
Little,
yeah.
Just I think one or two slides more. So okay, so the okay, so yeah, I was here. Okay, local. Okay, so the another issue is we need with this life cycle assessment because local risks cannot be assessed. So if a worker in particular factory exposure, this figure it out and can say, this person will die, it is not safe. So it can't say that. So it needs risk assessment incorporated in it. And in the scientific literature, they're working on it, but still it's not established. Still they are separate. Risk assessment and life cycle assessment, we need to use both of them. So chemistry questions need to be assessed. Okay, so how you say which chemical information we need to know. So basically, what impact assessment we are assessing. For example, for toxicity, we need to know the minimum level of this chemical to affect to start to kick in for example, I can say there is a chemical, and if you take 1 milligram, it will not affect you. It will not be toxic to you, right? If you take 1.1, it will be toxic, and you will see some effects, right? These things are extrapolated from animal studies to humans. They try it on mice, rodents, and they extrapolate this chemical information, the toxicity we say, right, to this is just for human toxicity. If you want chemical information on climate change, you must do experiments on how much this chemical is absorbing different wavelengths of radiation from sun, right? So they do it for CO2. They say, okay, then they do it for methane. They say methane times more absorbing those radiation than CO2. Then they say, okay, let's put 28. But it's very complex, not that simple. For methane, there is degradation rate in the atmosphere. When you release, it will degrade. CO2 doesn't degrade for thousands of years if it doesn't absorb by the trees, but methane gets degraded by this solar energy source. It's very complex, but those are factors that takes into account all these. So basically, the main idea is if I emit this much for each impact category, for climate change, for human toxicity, for biodiversity loss, how I can, with using best of those emissions to those values, right? To human toxicity, to climate change, into those. So there is no one aspect for the chemical. The toxicity of the chemical, the global warming potential of the chemical. So we must know the characteristic of this chemical, how it is behaving, right? And
did you change the slide, Semi, because about the downsides?
yes.
And Stephanie, she can't see it. Can you see it, Stephanie?
It might because of my night work outside, so it's dark for me.
I was.
It's fine.
Yeah, I was answering the question about the. So sorry. Okay, I was answering a question. This is not about the slide. I was answering a question. Oh, sorry. So okay, I hope you know this chemical is for each chemical there's different aspects to be figured out. And it says, and also how to get educated enough to be participating in impact analysis. Well, if you want educate, I think this life cycle assessment is not that complicated in basic things, but this connecting emissions to impacts is complicated. So you can go to scientific literature and just read it. Just search scientific literature. Google Google. Just search for life cycle assessment, and you'll find it. And so established method. What you use it in RBE, including the human time, right? And thank you. So this one,
Nice.
this is monkey mind.
Reminds me of something that Jacques wrote in Moving Forward. He talks about how in a resource-based economy, all of these different things, so not only the resource use, but also the impact, also the state, all these things are measured by computers. Or somewhere else, they said, well, if we have to make a decision, we have to assign a value to each of these categories. So then the computer just adds all of these values up to make the decision about what the best thing is. Do you think that would be a good use for the life cycle assessment?
And for example, this computer will add up what it will add up. I mean, we can say, let's add up the monetary values, how much dollar it costs. Does the monetary values really show how happy we are, or GDP now they are doing. I mean, it's ridiculous. Now, right now, it doesn't take into account the happiness of people. It doesn't take into account the improvements of the soul or the cultural, or if many people understands what is life, and they decide, okay, I like nature, I will consume less, the GDP goes down. So if people wakes up, it is bad for the economy. How an economy is that, right? So we definitely, it's not about economy, the monetary values. How can we assess? Then we can just check the time of humans, how much we are stealing. We can include working time with disease time. We can say this guy is working 5 hours because of this activity. He will lose, or she will lose 1 hour because of the disease. These emissions we can link now to the lost time. So we can see working time as lost time, as you are dead because you are not doing what you really want. As I said, if I tell this in the scientific community, that we can see this human time, that the working time can be equal to being sick or being dead, because we are forced. As some people likes their work, then let them vote that just say, exclude me from this assessment. I like my work. It can be done. Why not? I mean, there are lots of things to incorporate this loss of human life. So this can be an assessment. And another thing is the biodiversity loss, which is very important, and they can assess it. I mean, this is well established that we can prevent this biodiversity loss, this degradation, and we can prevent climate change with this assessment. As we prevented CFCs, we just said this chemical is causing this ozone, so let's not emit it. So we can say the same thing with this assessment. Let's stop methane emissions, let's stop CO2 emissions. So the environment is assessed, human health is assessed, and the rest will be up to people, the educated people. If we educate them, it will be up to people to choose what function they want. For example, I said this function, I want to go from there to there. Is it necessary? Do you really want to go there, or just can you find this what you want in a closer place, or can you be local? Do you want this bananas from far away countries, or you can just eat the fruits where you are? So this is all about this assessment. It is very complex because it is about finding alternatives to make you happy, to maximize people's happiness, to find alternatives. And there are lots of alternatives. But this is a way to assess those alternatives. For example, you can assess fruits, apple, banana, whatever. You can assess the impacts of those different fruits and different meat to, this. And you can put on the market as a number. And then people can choose. You just say, okay, people, this is the impact on environment. You can see on the products. Let's choose whatever you like, but we must have educated people to do that, caring people, apart from the money they spend. So the whole system must change, that they should care about the environment, not only money, right?
Can I come with some input there? The way my sound is notoriously bad on the system, but the environmental impact, I would say that is it's a that
helps us to decide how to go on from a part of the project that must be done. The result of the environmental impact could be we don't do it, it's too risky, or it could be that we do. But the environmental impact gives us the opportunity to do some actions which reduce the impact of as detailed in the environmental assessment. So to me, there's a very much a different attitude from the corporate incantation of the environment than there is to the money-free, the resource-based economy. And so to me, the environmental assessment is every aspect of environmental assessment is a concern that must be simply addressed. Or it's addressed, not necessarily solved. And so it's up to the consent as to whether we go ahead as a result of doing the environmental assessment based on a series of what I would say is concerns. And to me, in my world, a concern is either a risk or an issue. An issue is something that happened. Risk is something that hasn't happened yet, but it still has to be actions to prevent it from happening. So that's just my tuppence worth of information on there. My profession is risk management and project controls, and what you said was a very interesting talk. Thanks very much for that. And so it gives us all lots of food for thought to make the projects go in the way that they should.
Yeah.
So thanks. That's my my contribution.
Thank you very much. Well, I have been in some projects that there is a risk assessment is done separately, but well, today, unfortunately, I see the risk assessment is focused on, again, everything comes to money. I mean, because it's all done by corporations. If you know why how it started. It started with this there was a film, the movies made that there was a hexachromium. Yes.
Sami, would you like to give us the conclusion, because time is running out?
Yes. Okay. Sorry. So the thing is, what I was going to say is, it comes all to money, and the risk assessment is done not to prevent corporations from the law, and that they can sue you. So it is all about this. So this risk assessment is it should be improved as well. Anyway, okay. So that's the thing. Life cycle assessment is a good tool. Go learn about it. Search on the scientific literature, and thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. It was a really good presentation. It's my first time to know this framework. So I would like to thank you all to join the 10th Moving Forward RBE meeting. Our next meeting will be on 29th of this month, and the topic will be copiosis. And Charlotte will give us the presentation. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week.
No, I won't. I'm not giving the presentation. I'm going to be the chairperson. Perry Gruber is going to be the presenter on copiosis. So that's going to be really interesting, because he was at a meeting with all kinds of billionaires this last week, and he said they were doing some really good work. So I'm interested to see what he has to say. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you. So I would like to thank you all, and see you on 29th. Bye, guys.